All right, thank you for your patience. Good evening. My name is Allison Yeager, and I'm privileged to be working with your students at Oregon Middle School in the band program, along with my colleagues Renee Carmichael and Paul Ulrich. So thanks for being here tonight and supporting your students. We have our March concert is a little bit different in format than our December concert and our May concert, in that we feature some of our solo and ensemble projects in addition to 2 large group pieces. So the students have been working kind of double duty on their chamber music unit, which is their personalized learning unit, where they get to choose what kind of music they want to play, what genre it is, if they want to play with others, if they want to play alone. They get a lot of choice in how they do that, and then also choices in how they perform. So we're going to feature 4 of those per each grade level today, of students that have worked very, very hard and prepared very well. And our first one is going to be Abby Stebbins. So Abby, you can come on up. Abby's playing a piece called Ballet of the Shepherds. Ladies, come on up. Clara, Lily, and Darren. And they're performing the Gavotte from Harpsichord Suite Number 5. So the students will either be performing at Festival this Saturday at Verona High School. You've probably heard quite a bit about that already, or maybe you haven't because you have students that are in middle school. You probably only get like the news bulletins every now and again from your students. But we also have students that will be performing in class because they've chosen that option as well. And those projects will be performed, those assessments will be taken care of in this upcoming week as well. So please feel free to ask your student about what they chose to perform and why, and what challenges there were in that chamber ensemble or solo versus what they experienced with their full band. The piece that we're about to play for you for our first large group piece is called A+. And it's got some kind of dual meanings to it, so I'd like to share a little bit of information with you about that. Jack Stamp is not the composer of this piece, but he's a composer who also writes literature about what it means to be a musician versus other things. And he particularly hears a lot of people compare music, being a musician, to being in sports. And so I have a little bit of his information that I'd like to share with you. He says, "I get tired of people talking about band being easy. It is not easy. And where sports are important for a lot of factors, it's not as hard as it is to be in band. You know, I was thinking about that a good batting average is 300. That's 30%. If we played 30% of the notes, how would that sound? And in football, you actually get a chance for built-in failures. They call it an incomplete pass, right? We can't have an incomplete B flat. That wouldn't work out very well. And we don't get 3 chances to play it. And we can't punt in the middle of a piece if we get stuck on downs, right? Now, granted, the difference is we don't have anyone trying to stop us from playing like you do in football. So you do have that in a sports contest. But with this piece, we're going to academics for a minute. So Thomas Duffy wrote this piece called A+, and it has a subtitle to it called A Precise, quote-unquote, Precise Prelude and an, quote-unquote, Excellent March. And the students, we didn't teach them about the not so excellent part of it until later, because if we did that, then they'd probably be super obsessed with the mistakes that they get to make. So we got to teach the excellent part of it first. But the premise behind this piece is that the unique grade of an A+ is awarded for achievement in the area of 97 to 100%. This means that in the sciences and humanities, for example, the highest possible grade can be awarded to work or achievement that contains up to 3% error. So 3% short of perfection, in other words. Can you imagine a musical performance with even 1% error? Never mind 3%. Most musical performances are flawless in execution in certain domains like pitch, rhythm, and dynamics. Music performance routinely demands 100% accuracy in execution, and music performance is unique in that regard. The prelude, if performed well, is precisely imprecise, that has tendrils of harmonic material floating around at the whim and fancy of the woodwinds. I like those words, whim and fancy. You like that, woodwinds? We'll see. The march is a simple commencement-like processional, which is repeated. The ensemble players are instructed to make one mistake when the march is repeated. A mistake of pitch, dynamic, rhythm, or articulation is their choice. Now there are 8,665 notes in this piece. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not that long, don't worry. If one considers that each singular note has an execution of dynamics, rhythm, and articulation, then 8,665 times 3 becomes 25,995 possible mistakes that could be made just in that piece. In fact, 3% error in the case of a 60-piece ensemble would be 779 mistakes. A rate of performance that would qualify for an A+ in the academic world, but would probably result in the conductor of the ensemble receiving a pink slip or the request for career counseling before the last note's reverberation ceased. Nevertheless, by all academic standards, the performance of this march with anything less than 779 mistakes will be excellent. Now there's 107 kids on stage, so they're still going to make a total of 107 mistakes, but it's going to still end up to be over 99% accurate based on those figures. Enjoy. We like fun and educational. Thank you. And we welcome Emma Yakeley to the stage, and would also like to thank Tom Elmer for accompanying our solo students for the project. And Emma's also playing a gavotte, but a different kind of one by William Boyce. And our last solo and ensemble project feature for 7th grade is Max Higgins on marimba, and Max is playing Sueños by Lalo Davila.
dance was originally written in the 16th century by Tielemann Sasato. This piece is very typical of the mid-16th century royal court music and would have been played by a small orchestra or by Renaissance-style bands. In recent decades, Bob Margola's arrangement of it has gained mass popularity among middle and high school wind ensembles for its simple yet powerful melody and beautiful harmonies.
You'll notice that the band reseated itself for this piece. Because of the way Margolis arranged this piece, you hear that there are call and response patterns between the woodwinds and brass, between two antiphonal simple parts on either side of the band, and even within sections. These call and response patterns create an audible battle between the sections in the band. We choose to reseat ourselves by separate groups of woodwinds and brass to highlight that feature. This
piece begins with a quiet, sustained melody and continues with small choirs of instruments battling. It ends with a heavily accented fanfare of horns and trumpets.
We have two more featured solo and ensemble acts, two for 8th grade now before we warm up again and play their first full ensemble piece. So I'd like to welcome Bree Sauer and Artie Fishwild in their duet called The Bells by Keith Snell. I thought they had changed their minds and took off for a minute. And now we have Annika Olsen and Grace Cooper playing Invention Number 4 by Bach.
Grieg, 1843 to 1907, is best known for his eternally popular piano concerto in A minor, as well as more than 150 songs and 66 lyric pieces. March of the Trolls is from his lyric pieces, Opera 54.
Trolls are a constant theme of the Norwegian folklore and can be viewed as an equivalent of our boogeyman. In many instances, although other stories in trolls in Norway paint them as such gentler and simpler creatures.
Far to the north in Norway, where the winter storms whip the weather-beaten coast, you will find dark forests with moonlit lakes, deep fjords surrounded by mighty snow-capped mountains, and long rivers and cold streams cascading down mountainsides. This is where you might find the irritable, short-tempered trolls coming out of their hiding places after sunset, marching to wreak havoc on unsuspecting Norwegian households.
With Wisconsin's large Norwegian population, studying this piece was a fun dive into folklore and how to embody the characteristics of the trolls through music. Nick Fisher, one of our trombone players, was also kind enough to bring a real imported doll from Norway, which had its very own original story that we were able to share with the class.
While Liesel and Sage are getting ready up here for your next duet, I wanted to just acknowledge, the soloist names are in the program, but I wanted to acknowledge them one more time, also so I don't forget anybody. Patrick Broniano, Chloe Byron, Jordan Dish, Forrest Gardy, Cassidy Harvancic, and Philip Jadosiak were all soloists in the middle section of that piece. So let's give them one more round of applause. And our last solo and ensemble feature tonight is a flute duet by Philip Jadosiak and Patrick Broniano, Ein Mädchen oder Weibchen by Mozart. One more round of applause for our solo and ensemble members today. I hope that you got a chance to read some of your students' quotes in the program about what music means to them and what they value about being in an ensemble. I'm constantly amazed by their insight and the thoughtfulness that they put into that. So please do, if you haven't had a chance to read those, please do read those student quotes. Some chose to be anonymous and others chose to be identified. On the back table, there's also brochures for UW-Madison Summer Music Clinic, one of the finest camps in the country for music and music education. And I've been working with that program for the last 15 years, and all the students that I've ever had at any school I've ever worked at have absolutely loved it and continue to come back because it's such a high-quality program. It's just really fun for me to see the students there and actually get to do stuff like play Foursquare with them, which is kind of cool. But they also learn incredible things, valuable things about music education and how to develop themselves better as musicians. So that is the third week in June, and those brochures, feel free to take one, are on the table. Also would like to say just a couple announcements and thank yous. Mr. Dominic Lysing, I don't know if he made it tonight. Did Mr. Lysing make it here? I don't think he was able to come. But Dominic Lysing, we're going to welcome him to the OMS Band program. He'll be teaching as my long-term sub while I'm on maternity leave. Here in about a month. I'll be going out and I'll be back in September, but I'll be gone from April through to June. So he is fantastic. Your kids are in great hands. So we'll welcome him into the program. Also want to thank Principal Anderson and Associate Principal Iverson. Tom Elmer again, our orchestra teacher, also accompanying our students tonight. Renee Carmichael and Paul Ulrich, our other teachers in the OMS Band program for small group. And all of our RCI friends and Heather Ratman, also our choir teacher at OMS and RCI, for their support. And Nick Lane here at the high school for all of his support, and he and his students help set up the stage for us every time we have a concert, which is really, really helpful. Yeah, and thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate your support of your students in OMS Band. Last couple of things is students, 7th graders are responsible for chairs. Make sure you read the signs on the racks. And 8th graders are responsible for stands. Good news for percussion. Mr. Lane says to leave the percussion equipment on stage. They're really lucky. Okay, but percussion. Anything that you have to bring back to the middle school that needs to go in that box or needs to go by hand, make sure that you take care of those responsibilities too. And grab a chair or a stand to help out. And then finally, before our readers come up for Arabian dances here, because I won't have a chance to acknowledge them a second time since this is our last piece. Just want to tell you, Philip Jadosiak and Bree Sauer will be soloists on our final piece tonight. Thank you very much, everybody.
Arabian dances depicts a setting of a nomadic tribe on the Arabian Peninsula reaching camp for the night. After a long journey, nomads set up camp for the evening. As the sun casts its final searing rays on the desert landscape, a campfire roars to life and the celebration begins.
As the sky darkens, the festivities grow wilder and wilder until eventually 3 groups of revelers take turns dancing at the edge of the fire, each trying to outdo the other in a dance-off. Finally, the entire tribe joins, dancing wildly for hours until the campfire dims and the morning grows near.